introduction. So I am Chief Creative Officer for DC, but I'm also the publisher. And I'm going to actually use a couple minutes to kind of talk about something that's happened at DC, happened last week. Meanwhile, I'm looking for my pens. You know, I forgot to bring paper. Does anyone have any blank backing boards as well? Fantastic. All right, bring this up in a little bit. Hold on. So, have any of you guys been to a panel like this before? Like one of my spotlight? I've been in Chicago a long time. Okay, all right. And recycle all my old jokes. Perfect. All right. So,
just draw, dude.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So let me just start by saying, you know, to address some of the stuff that's out there. Yeah, there's rumors. You know, there's just speculation. I wouldn't put any credence into it. DC has been around for 85 years. We're going to be around for another 85 years. Yeah.
Woo!
I hope to be doing this panel in 85 years. I'm a very optimistic guy. And look, we're a huge, important part of Warner Brothers. You know, we've been with Warner Brothers for decades. And ultimately, when you look at DC, the actual strategy of DC is to put publishing in the center of everything that we do. It is the source material that drives the media engine, you know, all these movies and TV shows and animated movies and video games and merchandise, all that kind of stuff. So obviously you can see the importance and what the value we bring to the greater whole. And so it's my intent really going forward, you know, as the publisher, to lean into the collective years of experience that are on my team. You know, I think actually one of the reasons I actually sold Monstro to DC was they had an amazing deep bench. So between, you know, Hank Canals, who runs sales and marketing, Bob Harris, who's the editor-in-chief, Allison Gill, who's in charge of production and manufacturing, you know, these are the heroes behind the scene. You have Courtney Simmons in charge of publicity, Andy Pease in charge of business and finance, Jay Cogan is our legal guy, Sandy Yee's in charge of franchise. Like, so there's a ton of people that basically we all work together. And I would say the collective years of experience we have is probably like 120 to 150 years at this point. And I've worked with these people for years now, and we know their business inside out. So rest assured, the company's in really great hands. We have some amazing things planned for you guys. And if I could spend a minute talking about the creative work that we're doing, let me just say that, again, it's hard for me to talk about things that we haven't officially announced, but at the same time, I realize we have teased some things out. But our intent really is not to do a line-wide reboot that ages up characters and kind of shuffles them off to the side. You know, our focus, in talking to the editorial team, our focus really is to continue what we've done best, which is to really create character-driven stories, pairing the right creators on the right characters, and organically developing a universe that is inclusive, diverse, and that we tell amazing stories that you guys love. And I'll just share with you really a little anecdote to kind of close this section off before we get to the drawing part. When I started as Chief Creative Officer about a year and a half ago, I was introduced to a person that ran a very big division within Warner Brothers, and so, you know, I was just trying to be cool and feel like, you know, I could belong there. But inside I was very nervous and just very kind of like, gosh, I gotta say something right, I gotta have the right opinion, I gotta have the right analysis of what we've done and what we could be doing. And I had all this pressure, kind of, all these thoughts running around my head. And this person basically looked at me and said, like, you know, welcome to the team, we're gonna have a lot of fun. And that just, you know, that was just like the perfect thing to say to someone, right? Because maybe he sensed that that was quite nervous or whatever. But it put me completely at ease, and I think it really reminded me of our true mission here. Like, you know, we're telling stories about characters that can fly and go into alternate dimensions. This should be a lot of fun. And it really just kind of put me in the right mindset going forward. Like, approach this from this point of view, and good things will happen. So I want to share that with all of you guys. If you are new to a panel like this, or if you're new to DC, I just want to welcome you guys to the team, and we're going to have a lot of fun. All right?
Woo!
This is wireless mic. Awesome.
Yeah, right.
best. Thank you very much, man. Appreciate it. The wires. Okay,
Ryan's gonna be drawn in the next EC book.
Anyway, so just some quick, interesting tidbits. I'm kind of focused on the Marvel section of this whole story. That's where I first met Bob Harris, right? Who's the current editor-in-chief of Marvel. I actually worked with him when I worked on the X-Men. He was my editor back in the day. So it's just kind of interesting, kind of where life takes you and where you end up with people down the road. And Allison Gill, actually, who's our SVP in charge of production and manufacturing and design, she also worked at Marvel. So we share a lot of common history in the business. He looks too happy, doesn't he? I've lost the touch. Sorry. Where's the cigar? I don't know if I'm allowed to put the cigar anymore.
He needs a beer.
All right. Oh my God, I'm so rusty. I don't even know what I'm doing. Okay. So, this is my visual representation of the years I spent at Marvel. Thank you.
Woo! Where's the whiteout?
Okay. Anyway, so that was really amazing, being able to kind of visualize what I wanted to do and really kind of move from being a fan and having like these crazy kind of almost fan fiction type stories, and then being able to get into the business and work with the people I idolized, like Chris Claremont and John Byrne later, and you know, get to talk to them. It was just crazy. But then I left. This is where I ripped this drawing in half. No, that would have been a good one.
Boo.
Anyway, I'm gonna give these away at the end. In Seattle, but no, I'll do it here. I love you guys. I love you guys. You guys are the best. I would not do you that way. All right, and then I left with a bunch of other artists who are insane, if I can add that. No, they're all good guys. So like, I had just one sister, and Image Comics was the next thing I worked on. Right.
Woo!
It was 5 or 6 different artists, depending on which version of the origin story you want to believe. But we all worked at Marvel. We were all more or less peers of one another. We all kind of broke into the business around the same time. And we realized we wanted to shake things up and kind of own the things that we created. And, you know, I think it was really, at the time, you know, it was really kind of addressing the power balance, I think, between the companies that own the characters that everyone loved, and then the creators who obviously made a big impact on how the readers interpreted and loved the characters. And so part of it was really kind of forging our own destiny, but also asking for the respect we felt we were due. And that departure led to a lot of interesting, I think, advances, improvements for the industry. You know, computer coloring was something that we really kind of put a big investment on. We hired a lot of new people to come in and do the digital coloring for the comic books. We created a lot of new characters. We hired and brought in and trained a lot of new artists, people like Jeff Scott Campbell, Lee Bermejo, Carlos de Anda, Travis Ray. A lot of really talented folks came through the Image Comics studio systems and are professionals today, or music directors, or storyboard artists. So there's a lot of great creative work that was done. How'd you know? Every drawing will have the same hair right there. Let's do this. All right, yeah. So, but that was a crazy era in that we were really kind of thrust into the limelight,
we were all like artists, and we had to really learn the business. And I feel like we probably made every mistake we could possibly make as business people, but things were so successful, like the industry kind of forgave us in some respects, in some of the poor decisions we made. Things were just so brisk, and there was such demand for everything we were creating, and that kind of lifted all boats. I mean, you look at sales across the board. Marvel and DC both were in their heyday and selling millions of comics every single month. It was a very heady time period, and there were a lot of people that were interested in kind of making movies and TV shows based on their characters, toy companies that wanted to meet video game companies that wanted to make games. So it was, at one point there was a company that wanted to make Image comics on ice. That was a project actually. Sherry, that's real. And none of us knew how to ice skate, so that went badly quick. No, so we just turned it down because, I don't know, we were too cool for that. But now as a parent, I'm like going, we should have definitely done that. How cool would it have been? Spawn, like lifting, like
A 40-foot cave.
twirling around. That would, come on, that would be pretty cool, right? Yeah, exactly.
Mall on ice.
And then, hold on, let me finish this up. In 1998, so about 6 years, and you'll see that there's a trend here, which I'll talk about in a little bit. I did that for about 6 years, and it reached a point where it was kind of burning me out. It was crazy. I mean, I wasn't drawing a lot, but I was taking all these meetings with people. I remember this one toy company called Tyco in New Jersey, and they wanted to meet, and I flew on the red eye from San Diego, arrived into Philly, took the meeting at like 11 o'clock in the morning, grabbed a cheesesteak, got back on the plane, and then flew back home. And that was like a normal thing to do. And when you're in your late 20s, you can do it physically, but it was just, that's what it was like constantly. Like, so-and-so wants to meet. We didn't know how to say no. Obviously we took that meeting on, Image on Ice, right? We would meet with anyone and everyone. And I don't think we had the discipline to, A, create a strategy, and then B, use that strategy to help dictate the types of meetings that we would take. We were just so enamored to be kind of running our own enterprises that we were just curious to hear what everyone wanted to do with us, with these characters. But anyway, one of the reasons I sold to DC was that, as I mentioned, they just have an incredible depth. We have an incredible depth to our bench. They had such a great staff of people with collective years of experience in all facets of the business, having been around for much longer than we were. And so it just made sense, and especially as the business shifted from periodicals to trade paperbacks. I don't know if you guys were around that period of time, but most of the business was what kind of focused around selling periodicals, but then trades actually became about 50% of our business. And to kind of really penetrate the book market, the casual book market, it meant publishing a lot of books and putting it out there on a returnable basis, which meant really investing a lot of capital into things that you might not get an immediate return on. So from a business capital perspective, it required me to really take a long pause at the resources we had in terms of capital and whether we could weather publishing tens of thousands of copies of all our trades and basically putting them out there and not getting a return until 3 years or 5 years down the line. And so being able to tap into DC's deep pockets and their expertise, and really having created this marketplace with a lot of their books that were published in the mid-'80s, played a big role in it. And so when I started in '98, they signed me up for a 5-year exclusive thing, and I figured, okay, I'll be there for 5 years, I'll be that transition period of time, and thereafter, who knows what I'll do. And for a long time, I actually didn't do anything until a Batman opportunity came up, and that was Batman Hush. Yeah.
Woo!
So I was kind of burnt out. Like selling the company was a huge emotional kind of, process for me. I wouldn't say I was clinically depressed after I sold it, but I think I looking back on it, I was a little depressed in that I kind of lost a lot of enthusiasm for what I was doing. There was a time when I knew like every single artist, every single inker, every single book that was published, and I just kind of, there was like a big hazy moment that kind of surrounds that period where I sold the company. There's just a lot of pressure, like people talk about being in charge of a company as like a really cool thing, like that you don't have to answer to anyone. But my experience has always been that when you're running an organization, yes, you are the final arbiter of decisions, but you're also beholden, you have an obligation to all the people that work for you to make sure that they are happy, that they are paid, that they are employed. And so that there's a lot of, in my mind, a lot of responsibility that goes with that. And that was something that kind of weighed on me very heavily in this sale, and as we merged our company with DC. But it was the creator that really kind of brought me out of this funk, and the opportunity to work with Jeff Loeb, who I was a big fan of, and working obviously on the marquee character like Batman, and doing it in secret was a really cool thing. In that, I don't know if you guys know the story, but I wasn't really reliable on the deadlines at that point, and so we didn't want to alarm anyone and put it out there that I was working on a Batman project because I think we were worried that they would shut us down and say, hey, you can't do that, you're not going to be able to get all these issues done. But the goal was always to have it come out in the actual book, the monthly Batman book. Although we knew that when people are deadline challenged, they almost always want to put them onto these side projects to have, so you can have more leeway with the deadlines and you don't have to be out there every single month. And so we decided we were going to work in secret, and only 3 people knew about this. Me, Jeff Loeb, Mark Chiarello, actually 4, and Mike Carlin, who was like, I think, the head editor at the time. Mark was the art director, but he was someone that Jeff Loeb had worked with before and had confidence and trust in. So we said, look, we're going to work in secret, and if we get this thing done, please consider publishing it as part of the regular Batman line. And if we flame out because I can't hit a deadline, no harm, no foul. We haven't even announced this project. So Jeff and I worked on this secretly. He would send me the scripts, I would draw them, and I think I drew 6 issues of the 12-issue arc before we finally shared with other people that had been done. People loved what we did and started seriously thinking about putting it into the actual run because we had so many issues done. And I think finally, by the time they solicited the book and put it in the catalogs, I think I had 9 issues done and a year of story to be published, right? And I barely made that 12th issue after a year. So there's just something I think about, the 12th issue also was double-sized, I think, but as it started coming out and it was very successful, it just kind of drove a lot of demand, and there's interviews, there's a lot of stuff that happens after a book is announced and if it's successful, that kind of eats up your time. But that was like probably the funnest project I worked on at DC because A, I got to work on Batman, B, we got to really explore a lot of his rogues gallery and do almost every villain, I think, short of like Penguin and Two-Face, who were, I think, on 1 panel each or something like that. And it was really kind of like the Batman story. If you could only draw one Batman story in your career, what would that look like? And that was kind of the approach we took. And honestly, I had no idea how impactful it would be, but it's interesting years later now, like we're approaching the 20-year point at this point, how many people have told me at conventions like this how it got them into the comic book business or brought them back into the business. And I find that to be probably one of the most flattering and kind of coolest things you'd be able to hear of how your work can impact someone, not just bring them into the business, but or maybe even just inspiring them to become an artist or a graphic artist themselves, right? And so that's something that's always, it's something I didn't really think about when I broke into the business, the kind of the impact beyond the enjoyment of reading the story, but how what we do can shape young people's dreams and help people achieve things that they want to do, especially in the creative arts.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you. That's very kind. Anyway, so that was a lot of fun, and I've been at DC since '98, so that is 22 years. Yeah, and everything before that point, I started seeing a sort of a natural rhythm. Like every 5 or 6 years, I tended to move on to the next big thing, right? A new challenge, a new opportunity. I was at Marvel from what 87 to 92. Image was 92 to 98, so it was about 6 years. And the first 5 years at DC, I did Hush, I did Superman for Tomorrow. There was a couple years of transition at the beginning. I didn't do much of anything. And then after that, I worked on this video game project called DC Universe Online. I don't know if anyone's
Woo!
right? I think I would have left DC at that time, and this opportunity was happening, and Paul Levitz, who was the publisher at the time, knew that I was a big gamer. I spent a lot of time doing research, playing Ultima Online and EverQuest. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it was the first on my server to get a Fiery Adventure. Weird stat. Nerd. Anyway, so, but I worked on that for about 5 to 6 years. And then Diane Nelson came into the picture. She formed DC Entertainment, made Dan DiDio and myself co-publishers. And that was a whole different new experience, new opportunity. And so that kind of carried me through for the next 5 years, and then obviously becoming chief creative officer. That means I interface with all the Warner Brothers, Warner Media counterparts in theatrical, TV, games, animation, consumer products, on all the media productions that we create. So it's been a lot of fun and interesting things that I've seen and done in that space. So there's continually new things going on, and I just look at being the sole publisher now and working with this amazing editorial team, who I've been working with since 2010, but much more in the trenches now than ever before. Just being able to tap into not only their collective expertise and experience, but the fact that they're all from different generations. And so my vision for the line is that one size doesn't fit all. We have a pretty varied audience, and in many ways, when you come into comics, really kind of shapes how you look at storytelling, what you want out of these stories. You know, I'm 55 years old. I can't expect to have the same relationship to comic books as someone who's 30 that started reading Batman Hush as their first comic or whatever. So it's led to some really great, interesting conversations. And I hope out of those conversations, we sort of unleash or bring to life a new era of DC Comics that really kind of speaks to the sum totality of our audience. So, I should finish this. Batman. So that's the secret origin of my story. So at this point, I could probably open this up to Q&A. If you guys have any questions. More than happy to. Oh, there are two. How am I going to decide? Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Leandro. I'm from Chicago.
Yes.
My question to you is, if you were to choose one character from DC,
Yes.
and you get the magic power to be there for a day, who would that be?
Ooh. character from DC.
Elongated.
Probably a character that could travel through time, or like the Flash, right? The Flash would be pretty good.
Woo!
Yeah. I love history, so being like, it's not about running fast. It's about traveling through time, and alternate dimensions would be really awesome. And being able to defeat anybody without them even knowing. I mean, if you really look at the Flash, this is a character that can run faster than light, right? I mean, I think it's crazy. Like, the comic book stories for the Flash should just be one page. It's like the villain, and then you see the Flash, and it's a blur, and then the villain's in the jail. And every issue should just be the same. Because I really don't understand how, I mean, he's got to be like super hungover or something to get the drop on the Flash, right? Yeah, so I think he's a character that would be a lot of fun. Maybe Booster Gold, because he also. Yeah, I don't know. What's your favorite? Which character would you like to be if you had to choose?
I'd probably choose the Flash, because
A Flash villain?
no, just Flash.
Oh, okay. I thought you and I were gonna like. All right. Great. Well, thank you for your question. Yes, sir.
My name's Aaron. I'm from St. Paul, Minnesota. My question is quick and simple. Should we see the Snyder Cut?
So if I say the word Snyder Cut, that the clickbait headline is Jim Lee talks about the Snyder Cut, and then in the
I'm not
comments.
looking for hits. I'm just looking for an honest opinion, creative director.
Well, I'm not saying you would do this, sir. You look like a fine, upstanding gentleman. I'm just talking about the internet. And then the questions will be, how did he say the word Snyder Cut? Did he say it in a positive way, or did he say it in a negative way? How much was it Snyder Cut, hopeful, or Snyder Cut, downplay, right? I don't know. So it's a really tough question to answer. So, but I will say that, the only thing I'll say about this is that I think sometimes there's a movement to sort of segregate the audience and kind of dismiss a group and say they're not the fans, right? They're the people that like this, or they only like that. And I think that's something we need to resist. Honestly, we need every comic book fan that's out there. And whether you want the Snyder Cut or not, you're a DC fan, and I want you to be a DC fan. So that said, we have. We've been working on the slate. We have an amazing Batman movie. Suicide Squad is just killer, and Black Adam next year. These are all next year. We have Wonder Woman 84, which is, got tremendous momentum from the first movie that was amazing. So there's a lot of great positive things happening, and that universe is continuing to move on. I think next year will be the first time ever that we'll have 3 theatrical releases in 1 year. And Walter Amato is in charge of DC Films. He's a great partner, loves DC, super creative, great relationship with filmmakers. So we're very positive and hopeful for the future of the DC extended universe. All right?
Thank you, sir. I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
Oh, no, don't worry. If someone didn't ask, I wouldn't feel like, hey, is this a Comic-Con? What's going on? Yes.
I'm Parker from Orlando, Florida, and I just want to preface this by saying that Hush is one of the literally second comic book I ever picked up, so you're a big part of why I'm here right now. But
It was the first what?
second comic book I ever picked up and read. It was like the turning point where like, hey, these things can tell some cool stories. So
Right.
thank you for that. But my question.
And what do you like about it?
Oh wow, that's I mean, a lot of the story is.
We can do this all day long.
I love really the Batman Superman confrontation there.
Yeah.
I remember one of the pieces of art where like they're in the sewage tunnels and he uses the electrical connection to hook up to Superman and drains all the power from Metropolis.
Yeah.
Like that's just a graphic that stuck with me.
That was my idea.
Really?
It was. I didn't contribute much, but that was one of them. Yeah.
Alright, well, my question is, again, a little bit more on the movie side. So,
Sure.
from where I stand, there seems like there's a bit of an identity crisis in the DC Films landscape, where coming out of the sort of what I'm going to call a misfire of the original intention of the extended cinematic universe with Justice League kind of falling apart, and then we go forward and we see auteur-driven, very specific niche films, like I think about Joker, obviously pulling on Todd Phillips and a record 14 Academy Award nominations, and then even Birds of Prey is a
Jesus.
movie that seemingly almost doesn't have an audience to some extent because it's so specific and so different from a lot of the other films out in the marketplace. Whereas Wonder Woman 84 is something that is a lot more of a standard tentpole picture, very traditional Hollywood fare.
Right.
So going
He likes to hear
forward to
himself
movies
talk.
like Black Adam, movies like Suicide Squad with headed by James Gunn, are we going to see more of a focus on the sort of strange, creative niche roles that maybe the traditional Marvel marketplace can't fill? Or are you going to try and replicate the success of Marvel's strategy by crafting a new cinematic universe?
Right. So I don't think it's a good strategy to try to replicate any other successful strategy. I think DC has a lot of unique qualities that make it different from any other fictional universe, and those are the things that we should lean into because that's, I think, what people recognize as sort of uniquely DC. But I think the goal ultimately is to be more expansive and show you more of this connected universe, but more slowly, right? To take our time to introduce all the heroes and the villains, and then to lead to this Act 2. You know, if you look at any film universe, you want each and every film to be amazing in and of itself, but then the collective weight of these stories can lead to a bigger story that you ultimately kind of build up to, if you want. And I think that is the challenge, being able to do that. And I think that's something that is trickier than it sounds, but I think we're very hopeful that we are on the right path, and when you see the movies next year, you'll start to see a bit of that vision unfold.
We're very hopeful too. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Yes, sir.
How you doing, Jim? My name
Is there more paper? These are,
Run out
I've
paper.
got a couple more with me.
Oh, hey, how you doing, Jim? My name is Markel. I'm from New Jersey.
Jersey?
That little like.
I know where New Jersey is. Where in New Jersey? What exit?
44.
It's a New Jersey joke. All right.
So I was just
Thanks.
curious of the process of how.
This dude's trying to give him a sketch cover.
No, that's too much. I know. Okay. Really don't. This is your sketchbook.
Do it.
Blame the parents.
Yeah.
This is your dad's sketchbook.
I was gonna say.
Or do you want a job now? Yes. All right, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Okay, so my question is geared around one of my favorite new projects that you guys had was the R-rated Harley Quinn cartoon that you had on the DC Universe.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
I was curious if you had the choice, if there was any other characters that you'd like to give that sort of same adult theme treatment. Which characters and why?
I do, but I can't share them with you because there are people online who will then take what I say, and, and they'll make it seem like it's a position rather than just a random thought. Yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the so the coolest thing of being chief creative officer is that you get to see things and be in conversations about stuff that a handful of people in the whole world are involved in, right? It's super amazing, and you feel like the kid in the limo for the first time. You want to pop your head up, like, look at me! I'm in the limo. But you have to be cool, right? They'll kick you out, and you can't share like these thoughts because no, I don't. I have more than one. I have more than one, but I can't share. But I think the success of that show is good because we'll continue to do more of that, and it would be interesting to be able to expand it out and find appropriate characters that could kind of expand that quote universe of content. That would be fun. Yes. Yes.
Hi, I'm Eric from Palatine, Illinois. My question is regarding Bruce Timm, arguably, I think, one of the best live-action producers. So he did Justice League cartoons as well as Batman and New Adventures of Superman.
Correct.
Any possibility to bring him over to the live-action movies? I think he just has a great handle on the entire DC universe as well as action and story.
Yeah, no, I think we're all big fans of Bruce's. But I think his heart really is in animation, and he's got several projects. I don't know if we've announced them, but he's got plenty on his plate, right? So, yeah, that's all I say. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Are you trying to trick me? Is that what's going on?
No, I just
Publicist in the first row going.
DC could use some help in live action. I think.
What?
I think just DC needs a little help in live action. It's a little disconjointed.
Right.
You go. Hello.
Sorry, over here.
Hi. I'm Alex from sunny Hollywood, Florida. I'm here. My buddy Vroom. His favorite comic of all time, believe it or not, is Divine Right: The Adventures of Max Faraday.
I am very sorry for your game.
And I know it's like the only comic that you wrote and drew. You did the whole thing yourself. I just kind of want to know what that was like, and if you like ever want to do it again, what the challenges are what came with it. Like it was such a unique little window of your career, and I want to see what that little chapter was like. What can you tell us about it?
Yeah, I wanted to just try it out, but I think it was more to understand what writers do. I mean, I know what they do, but to do it firsthand gives you a different insight to it, the whole process. And what I found is that I could not stop working. Like, when you write or think of ideas, that's the start of the creative process. And then I would start drawing it, and then after I drew it, it would get colored. I would look at the coloring notes and make adjustments, then it would get lettered, then I would adjust the lettering, and then by the time we shipped the book out, I had to start thinking about the next issue again. So I had no downtime, and so it was really hard, and it made me vow never to do it again.
I don't blame you.
Because when you draw, you get the script, you draw, and you just maybe do it in 2 to 3 weeks if you're dreaming, and you get it done, and but once you're done, then you have like 10 days, you can just frolic and do nothing. It's amazing. It's the best feeling ever to be done with a deadline. And I think also, look, I think it's important to understand what you're good at and bad at. I'm not a good writer by any means, and so I don't want to just write stories because I want to and have you all suffer for that. So my strategy in life has been, well, I can draw pretty good. Let me find some really great writers to work with, and I'll learn from them about the craft, but also give you guys stories that hopefully are impactful and meaningful to you. So that's why I've worked with like Jeff Johns and Frank Miller and Jeff Loeb and all these great creators. I love the work they do, and being able to collaborate with them and work on a story is a little way of kind of like learning about their genius, and that's what keeps it fun for me. Like when you write and draw your own thing, it's all about you, and it's too much for me. There's a lot going on up here. It's
Thank you very much, and there is no Snyder Cut.
Yes, sir.
Hey, how's it going, Jim? Eric from Crown Point, Indiana. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
Quick question. I know you had a lot of help in creating Gambit, and I was just kind of wondering.
Not that much help. No. Yes, I had help in creating Gambit. What are you talking about? Like?
Well, just his origin. From
I was involved in the process.
Yeah.
Yes, that's what you meant. Okay, so yes.
I guess my question is, can you fill us in on some of the backstory, how that came about, and what your input was when it was, brewing around that time in Marvel?
Right. So that was probably 91, right? So that little kid that was up here, come on up. Get your schedule back. I want you to keep it though. Don't give it to your dad or your mom. I don't know. So
Next time I need to
Gamble was
bring
created
kid
in
with
the
me.
90s. For those of you who were
Hey, kid, come
unfortunate to
here.
be around that time, there was a big surge of popularity of Cajun things. You remember that? Blackened fish, right? Cajun fries. And we're like, the geniuses that we were, like, this is a big trend. We should get on top of this. What can we do? We should create a Cajun superhero. The first of its kind. And so that was the reason why. And then Chris Claremont, and I was in New York for some reason, but he was there. We met at the Marvel offices, and he had a name for the character, Gambit. And I like that name, right? It's a chess term, and it has other meanings. And but he didn't have a power. And like I said, I'm kind of a nerd. I said, look, what if his power is to excite valence electrons? And like everyone looked at me like, you guys are looking at me. I said, what, you guys don't know what valence electrons are? Come on, these are the things in the molecular structure of all things. And if you excite them, like in a microwave, they will explode, right? And so that was the idea. And then I play a lot of poker, I like gambling. Not anymore, I'm reformed. I only do good things now at DC. And but at that swarthy Marvel place, I was really into gambling, drinking, and cigar smoking, and anyway. So he should do something. He should have a Hallmark thing, and like he should have maybe playing cards, and he excites those valence electrons in those playing cards, and they explode. And so that was kind of that. And then I worked on the design, even though I didn't draw the first appearance of the character. I did a bunch of different designs, and then the colors. I chose the colors. I looked at all the other X-Men and what colors were missing, and purple and pink were kind of missing. And there were cool colors back in the 90s. So that was kind of the synthesis of how it all came together.
That's amazing. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Yes, sir.
Yeah, hello, how you doing? My name is Phil from Chicago, and
Yes.
I'm a huge fan for you. And I want to know, how come you didn't finish the 11th and 12th issue of All-Star with Frank Miller?
Why don't I finish it?
I said, how come you didn't finish it, you and Frank?
It would be nice to finish it. I think Frank would love to finish it. I would like to finish it. I don't think there's a story that we are both like in love with that would drive that. You need to know where you're going, and but we have talked about it, so I can share that.
So it's in the works.
Huh?
It's in the works then, right?
No, I want you to create a hashtag, release the Miller cut, and put it online right now. And I want you to send that to me every single day. And maybe that will inspire me to finish and draw that comic. Maybe.
Thank you much.
You're welcome. Thank you. All right. Yes, sir.
Hi, Jim. How's it going? My name's Omar. I'm from Carroll Stream, or one of the Illinois, one of the western Chicago suburbs. I actually have a Wildstorm question.
Okay.
You're listed as one of the co-creators. I've recently come to really enjoy the series Gen 13.
Correct.
Which you're listed as one of the co-creators. Do you have anything you'd like to share about either the origin of that story, of that property, or else just anything notable that Gen 13 fans should know?
I think that we've covered it probably in interviews, but that was something that Jeff Scott Campbell, he had created Roxy, and we wanted to do something that was younger, wanted to introduce an Asian character that wasn't a doctor or super smart. and grunge was very big at the time, and we're like, we should have a character called Grunge. That's how it works. You know, coronavirus the villain. So I'm like, oh my god, I can never stop working. That's the curse. Anyway, so that was part of it, and then we wanted to have these characters. Like that was probably the first real character-driven book. We had a lot of high-concept things like United Nations superheroes, wildcats, you know, aliens that came to Earth. But we had so much fun working on Gen 13 because it really kind of reflected kind of our childhoods and how we imagined them to be. And so a lot of it was plotting those stories were some of the funnest ones we worked on at Wildstorm, and it was really gratifying and rewarding to see the fans embracing it because they saw the fun of it, right? There's nothing worse than creating something you love that you think it's fantastic and then the audience really doesn't react well to it. But on that one, we felt like this is a great idea, and sure enough, the fans loved it, and then we used that to kind of introduce Team 7 and all these other characters. So we did a lot of great world building with Gen 13 as well. And I miss those characters. I hope to see them return soon.
Thanks.
Hey Jim, I'm Justin. How are you?
Hey, where are you from, Justin?
West Chicago.
Okay. Everyone else has been. I'm from St. Louis, Missouri.
Nice.
That's what I
Great race.
grew up. Yeah.
You kind of touched on it earlier with Booster Gold, but I was going to ask about a JLI cartoon, if that was something that was maybe in the plans for all the Booster Gold and Blue Beetle fans out there.
Not that I know of.
You should think about it.
Okay, I will. I will consider it. I will consider it. I don't know. I want you to be hopeful, but not too hopeful. So, I love those characters. JLI was a great series, but it's doubtful. That's the Magic 8 Ball response. Yeah.
All right. That's okay. Thanks anyway, though.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Hi, Jimmy from Glenview, Illinois. Jim, it's an honor to meet you. My question is, can I get the Batman sketch this year? I'm the biggest Batman fan. Please. Please.
You would be happy, but a lot of other people wouldn't be so happy. So I want to think.
I understand.
Right. You know, sometimes you do stuff for the one. What's the quote? I screwed it up already. It's, is there anyone dressed up as a Spock here? The needs of the one outweigh the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the one.
That is true.
Unfortunately, you're the one. So I'm gonna.
That's all right.
Yeah, no, but I completely respect the request.
All right, no problem. They do.
All right. All right, so we have 1 minute and 12 seconds. This is the last question, then I'm going to figure out how to give these away.
Hi, my name is Alex. I'm from Chicago. Quick question. So recently there's been a tipping point in just popular culture and the zeitgeist as far as representation matters, like Miles Morales and even Jon Stewart back in the day. And for someone like me who's Latino, it's important. In your role, is that something, how do you find the balance of honoring, you know, the classic characters, but also making sure that there is representation? Or is that even a discussion or something that you feel is your job or obligation?
I'll tell you that up and down, not just limited to comics, it's less stated than ever before. It's just normal, it's good business. Everyone has agreed that this is something that we want across the board. So it actually, in a very positive way, is less of a discussion. It's just something that's understood. We want the comics to reflect the diversity of our audiences, right? But we understand that the tradition and the history of DC is, you know, New York-centric stories, more or less, northeast coast related stories. But our goal, again, is to bring that diversity and reflect the entire world, not just New York or the Northeast. And to me, when I look to the future where comics will be five years from now, 85 years from now, I hope there to be even greater representation and diversity behind the quote-unquote the camera, the people that are editing the books, the people that are writing the books and drawing the books. And yeah, I mean, because I think if you're going to tell great stories that feel authentic and speak to your audience, I think you need different points of view. And that's not to say that you're squeezing other people out. We're doing so much stuff. We're doing books for young readers, middle readers, young adults. We've got the core DC continuity. We've got Black Label. We've got the starter books that we're doing in Walmart. There's so much content that we're creating. There's ample room for new voices. So that's definitely one of our initiatives.